Let us commence to begin. The commencement, usually that's at the end of the academic year, but the college will commence with a beginning. And the beginning is now. We have with us tonight both our speaker, Dominick Palella, who brought his lovely wife with him, Helene. And also we have Tom Berry from the College of Complexes in Austin? Dallas. So, one of those little cities in Texas, yeah. Okay. Good to see him back. The boat. What else? I think that it's about time we heard from our speaker, Dominick Palella.
Yeah, sure, go ahead. My older brain doesn't allow me to memorize stuff, so I'm going to be reading a lot tonight. That way we also get all my thoughts through.
Okay.
Hopefully it'll be entertaining, for some of you anyway. So I'm just going to read my speech and then I'm going to tell you what I'll do next. I'd like to thank Charlie, even though he's not here, for allowing me to speak tonight. Now, I started a website called UnitedVotersForAmerica.org to promote the idea of a comprehensive law that would give American voters a way to control how our government runs, from an oligarchy to a true form of democracy. I started formulating the law called the American Voter Rights Act, or TAVRA, saying TAVRA a lot, for about 4 years ago, and developing concepts for it since then, making a lot of changes along the way. Even before I came tonight to speak, I saw a lot of things I could change to make it better. I've tried my best to make it a blueprint for using our available 21st century information technologies as a means for voters to transform control over our government from American corporations to American voters. That would be a change, wouldn't it? On your table, or I've passed out a few of these already, you'll find an article entitled United Voters for America. The first page gives a brief outline of a mission to focus on the TAVRA law. Now, TAVRA contains 3 sections that address specific issues of law, such as our election process, so we'll go through the rules for that, our ability to monitor and control the conduct of our elected officials, which we have very little control over, if any at all, and to monitor and provide guidelines for how our taxes are spent, which we have absolutely no control over. For the most part, TAVRA is focused on our lawmakers. They are the ones who tell us how much in taxes we ordinary folks have to pay, how much the lawmakers themselves have to pay. Remember, members of Congress are earning $174,000 a year, and how much they're determining their wealthy friends and corporations have to pay. So there's kind of 3 sets of people there, and most of us aren't included in them. In a few minutes, I'll discuss some of the rules of TAVRA in the next 5 pages of the article. That's why it's kind of good for you to have a copy of it. I've summarized 18 of TAVRA's rules to cover the main points of the law. There's actually a lot more than that, but I've tried to condense them a little bit. And I'll give you some comments on why I wrote the rule, although some are kind of self-explanatory. I'm doing this because the main goal of my talk tonight is to get feedback on what you and the audience think about them. Please let me know your opinions as I'm always looking for ways to tighten up the meanings of TAVRA rules so they are as precise as possible and leave no doubt as to the intention of their meaning. This is not the case with nearly every reform law ever written. In fact, many of those recently proposed that have a stated intention to get corporate money out of politics actually support keeping corporate money in politics, with one loophole after another. I hope you find TAVRA a comprehensive law approach to hiring people with honor and integrity in government to be representatives that will be focused to listen to us and serve our needs as citizens. Some of the rules of TAVRA could be used as laws by themselves. However, I'd like you to consider that all the rules act as a force field to protect the law's integrity as a whole in order to give voters honest lawmakers that are responsive to their needs. Therefore, when I answer your questions and respond to your comments, I'd like you to imagine that this law has already been passed and has gone through a couple of election cycles already, because that's how integrated I want it to be. This should give you a better understanding of how the interrelated rules of TAVRA would affect our lives as voters. The second article in your little packet, entitled New Definitions for Political Language, will introduce you to some ideas about how this form of language can be very misleading and deceptive. For the most part, political language is meaningless drivel at best, and often as truthful as a con artist promises to make you rich. In any case, this article is pretty much self-explanatory. However, I'd like to summarize 3 statements of fact observed in the article that are just based on common sense reasoning. 1, politicians that state they want to get money out of politics while willfully soliciting and willfully accepting money from virtually anyone is lying to you. No one is holding a gun to their head to take money from anyone. The Koch brothers can have $10, $100 billion. Unless someone takes it, it's just sitting there in the bank or wherever it is. 2, any lawmaker that asserts we have a democracy is also lying to you. Because every legislature in the country creates and uses totalitarian rules of conduct to ignore the voter representation. They're just among themselves. They're not listening to us. And the third point, that any platform or political plan is nothing but a collection of meaningless promises, unless these promises define a specific law that could fulfill them. We've seen this in the last couple of elections. All kinds of plans, but no laws to back them up. Let's begin on the second page of United Voters for America article and go through the 18 summarized rules of TAVRA. I'll read the rule and then explain why I wrote it. Notice that I left some space there for you to write down your comments and questions. So during the question period, if you have a specific comment or question about a rule, which there are 18 of, try to be specific and I'll have a better understanding that we're both on the same page. And if anyone needs a pen, I brought some extra pens with me. No? Okay. Now. Okay. Let's begin by giving some of the TAVRA, we'll go over some of the TAVRA rules for elections. That's the first part of the law. Rule 1, all states will hold primary elections preceding a general or special election for their lawmakers. All candidates must personally collect 100 petition signatures from their voting district residents. These petition signatures can qualify for a government standardized website if they are in the top 10 petition signature collectors. So you've got to have quite a few people supporting you to get on the site. Their website will be used to present their proposals for laws, including at least 2 laws that they will write and submit upon election to office. Now, many of us don't even know if our lawmakers can actually write a law. Certainly, they can get together with an organization like ALEC, who tells them how to write a law or gives them a law to write and fill in the blanks for us. What does this rule accomplish? First, all federal, state, and most local ways to get candidates on a ballot are controlled by our private political parties and their corporate backers. They often make laws requiring thousands of petition signatures and then pay people to collect them for them. In most cases, millions of taxpayer dollars are used to finance private political party primaries, because that's what they amount to. The standardized website I suggested in this rule means that everyone will have the same options as, for example, the text size or the use of charts or graphs. And if a candidate wanted to explain something with a video, the background would be the same for everyone. You wouldn't have a banner over there unless everyone said, well, let's have a banner. But it would all say the same thing. Just equalizes everyone's presentation. Okay, rule 2. Everyone can hear me and kind of understand what I'm talking about? Good. No, someone said? Okay. Rule 2, once qualified, contributors to a candidate's primary election campaign will be deposited in the state's general election fund in the candidate's name. Only legal residents of candidate voting districts may make a contribution for up to $100 to their campaign. Naturally, this is against, doesn't follow the latest Supreme Court rulings, but we'll come to that as we go along. The General Election Fund will deduct a fee of 10% of the amount contributed to cover election operations. Candidates will be issued a debit card to withdraw funds and provide a sales receipt for each expense. This information will be displayed on the internet as it occurs. And when I was writing this rule, I said, well, do we really need to make it so specific? One would assume that the candidates would be spending their money on travel or food or lodging, especially if they're running for the Congress or a state, a senatorship in a state. But if they want to spend it for something else, we'll see the evidence there in how they spend the money that their contributors gave them. This rule will completely eliminate money from corporations and people who do not live in the candidate's voting district, which is where a lot of the money comes pouring in, especially for Congress and the major state elections. Only a person and no one representing someone else will be able to make a donation. And if politicians insist on keeping their legalized bribery payments, then an exception could be made. The corporation, as a person, may make their $100 contribution if they're a resident of the voting district. Free speech for all, right? Rule 3. All candidates will be invited to attend 2 town hall meetings moderated by members of the state university or local college political science faculty. No news people need to be involved in this. We want people with political science education. All meetings will be broadcast on FCC regulated television and radio broadcasting services and or streamed over the internet to public libraries or high school auditoriums, depending on the size of the voting district. Regular announcements on TV and radio will alert the public about these meetings. The use of FCC regulated broadcasting services which are regulated by our government, by private parties. If they have messages identifying any candidate, they must contain a revealing message that if any one person paying for that message, broadcast it or produce it, lives out of state, the amount of money they give and their name and address will be posted. This will put an end to political propaganda campaigns financed by outsiders, as the voting public will know that any information about a candidate can be found on their individual government website or will be observed in several broadcast town hall meetings. Political smear ads should quickly disappear from polluting our airwaves. So now you've got an internet site to go to and public town hall meetings to see. You really need to learn anything more from a television ad, especially one that's just a smear campaign. Rule 4, the primary election ballot will contain only the name and address of each candidate. Names will be placed in ascending order according to the number of petition signatures the candidate has collected. Petition signatures will be collected for the qualifying candidates on a continuous basis until 2 weeks before the primary election. So they're constantly going around, meeting people, civic groups are involved with them to support them, and they're getting more signatures which they have to secure in person. I didn't put this in here, but when you sign a petition, your photograph and your credentials are going to be videotaped or photographed. The top 5 vote getters by the second week before the primary will qualify for the general election ballot and placed in ascending order of the votes cast for them in the primary. This rule assures voters of having a choice of more than the usual number of political party candidates. And the number of choices at local and state elections will include average citizens, not just people paid to represent corporations as a member of one of their political parties. To clarify, the 10 candidates with the websites that are able to collect contributions now and participate in these town halls are getting their as many petition signatures as they can to get their place on the primary election ballot. And there's a tie for 5th place that anyone tied in that place, which is possible, but just add another person to the ballot.
Okay.
Rule 5, all voters will have their photographs taken when they enter the polling area and posted on the internet with a timestamp. We know exactly who's going into a polling area, and we have a picture of them on top of it. When their ballot is cast, they will receive a printed copy of it. Right now, we just get a receipt to set your vote. What does that tell you? Nothing. And it'll have the ID of the machine, the identification number of the machine that was used, and the time it was made. So if you go on the internet, you'll be able to see that your ballot was cast at this machine at this particular time. Doesn't identify you, but it tells you that you were there at that time, and if there's 10 more votes on that machine at that time, it's not going to make any sense. That's when you're going to challenge, why are these other votes on this machine? I was there and this is what I saw. There wasn't 10 other people in the room. That's the main point of that one. Rule 6. The general election will be held 8 weeks after the primary election. During this time, 2 more town hall meetings between all competing candidates will be scheduled and broadcast according to the rules established for the primary elections. So you're going to have 4 town hall meetings with the people to make your decision who you want to be elected. Any interviews, debates, or additional town halls presented on FCC, which means government controlled or regulated broadcasting stations must include all the candidates. And what I mean by that, that they're either included all at one time or they're scheduled at a particular time slot during the day or the evening where they'll maybe appear in sequence, taking turns if they want to be alone. To win a seat, a candidate must obtain a majority of votes through an instant runoff voting system. The overall effect of the rules in this section of TAVRA are meant to give the American voter easy access to information about many candidates who are not just corporate stooges or millionaires seeking attention. Do you really want wealthy people representing you who don't have a care in the world about paying a mortgage or a doctor's bill or even losing their job? Average Americans participating in elections, what else is democracy about? Moving on to Section 2 of TAVRA, these rule highlights concern the conduct of our lawmakers and how they can be monitored and controlled by electronic means to actually represent the needs of their constituents.
Yes.
Rule 7, members of a legislature cannot use any means to obstruct or delay the legislation process. This includes the actions of committees or any other means to deny, in my opinion, the First Amendment rights of another member's constituents to be represented. If a chairman of committee representing a couple 100,000 people doesn't want a law to pass, he's making a decision for all 330 million of us. That's not democracy. For example, committees may offer opinions, but have no authority to control the flow of legislation once it's reduced by any member of the legislature. This rule will not allow another member of the legislature, it's hard to say, to have any authority over any other member in the process of lawmaking as they do now. Unfortunately, most people don't understand how our lawmakers control their lives. These people who collect millions from one corporation or another are allowed to make up rules within the legislature. That's our government, that create a free-for-all among themselves to lobby within the government body for their own financial interest or the financial interest of their business partners. This rule demands that only opinions can be expressed for or against laws, and voters may ultimately decide if a bill will pass or be rejected as a law. Rule 8. A member of the legislature has sole discretion as to when a bill is introduced for public display on the internet. I'm using the internet a lot because right now, everybody, practically everybody, unless you can't get to a library, has access to the internet. All the information is there, and all libraries today have computers. So it's not hard to find that information. After a bill is introduced for public display, any lawmaker may co-sponsor it. Once a bill has a majority of one chamber of legislature co-sponsorship, it will be automatically introduced for voting by the full legislature. We see this as a problem when we have a faction of Republicans in the House that are controlling whether a law gets to the Senate or the President eventually. They're saying, no, we're not going to let this law out here. We're going to control and keep it here, and it's not going to see the light of day. Now, for a period of 8 days after a bill is introduced, a quorum of each lawmaker's constituents, now we're in the process of deciding if this bill wants to be a law or not. So 25% of those currently registered to vote will direct their lawmaker to vote for or against it. So here I'm trying to protect from a small group of people taking over the voting process and make it, a fairly large number of people to make that decision. So if you don't like what you think your lawmaker is going to do, you can have a voice and actually cause that person to vote according to your wishes as a majority of those participating. Which brings up the fact that maybe 10 or 15% of voters show up for voting during elections in certain districts. So if you're really interested in either having someone else make a decision for you, which they do now, and you don't have any say in it at all, or get out and vote and get information to see why you want to vote one way or the other. This rule serves as a refining process to help ensure wide acceptance and possible enactment of the law, getting a lot of agreement before something comes up for a vote, and a lot of people seeing it before they decide to make a decision. When a quorum of voters vote to accept or reject a law, their decision will override the lawmaker's ability to vote based on his or her opinion. Agreement by nonpartisan lawmakers elected without the influence of money should indicate that a law is worthy of consideration. This goes back to how people got elected in the first place. We've got honest people in office now, so we're considering their opinions as valid. Thus, after a bill is introduced for co-sponsorship, voters can contact their lawmakers to voice their approval or disapproval of the content. Rule number 9, all communications, including email and telephone communications between a lawmaker and any private citizen involving any bill, law, or regulation, will be recorded in audio, visual, or text format and posted the following day, unedited, on the lawmaker's government internet site. Some of you may know that the congressional record, thousands of pages long, is subject to editing. The lawmakers can say anything and edit it later. It doesn't really make any sense. Without TAVRA, private citizens, special interest lobbyists, and those wishing to commit fraud can meet in secret to pay for favors above or against the law without any public knowledge. I'm saying this: like any employee in private business, our government lawmaking employees, members of Congress, senators, representatives, wherever they are, should have no expectation of privacy when employed by the people as they do now. No more secret meetings. And if you're caught, there's going to be a big penalty for it. I won't discuss that tonight, but now I just want to go a little bit off topic, but just consider if you were a business owner and had to hire one of our congressional employees. First, you pay them $174,000 salary with an expense account of between $1 million and $3 million each year. Moreover, once you hire them, they can refuse to listen to you, decide to work half a day a few months out of the year, take money from your business competitors, and borrow whatever they want to spend and put it on your tab. These are employees in Congress and other legislatures. Today, this is exactly how the employees you pay in Congress work. Although you do get a chance to fire them every 2 to 6 years, if they bankrupt our government, they are completely immune from any consequences for their immoral, incompetent, or criminal conduct. Rule 10. Members of a legislature must hire only qualified civil servants. The duties of civil servants will be limited to performing clerical duties and research to investigate the interests of the lawmaker's constituents. Civil servants may not be used to speak on behalf of their lawmaker, can't be hiding off someplace, got to speak for himself, unless that lawmaker is disabled. Constituent direct voting, as I mentioned before, will be in effect if a lawmaker is absent for any reason during voting. In this case, no quorum of voters is needed. We'll all represent ourselves as voters. We don't need this person who is disabled or unable to vote for us. We'll do it ourselves. Nepotism and the hiring of incompetent relatives, friends, or political supporters will be stopped by the TAVRA rule. The sole purpose of lawmakers will be to conduct research into issues relating to their constituent base. Their conclusions will be of secondary importance when voters have the right to make the final decision on laws based on their personal research. At present, if a lawmaker is absent or physical or mental illness or any other reason, we have no voice to pass a good law or to reject a bad one. Voter control, laws rule, voters rule. Number 11, rule number 11. Members of the legislature are required to meet with their constituents once each month for at least a 2-hour recorded town hall meeting. Each town hall meeting will be held in different high school auditoriums within the lawmakers' district and broadcast on the internet and local radio stations in the lawmakers' district, as well as streamed over the internet. Congress member town halls will be televised on PBS all the time. This provides steady contact and information gathering by lawmakers, as well as public record of their responses. Voters wishing to ask questions or make comments will be selected by random means and limited to 5 minutes each during these town hall meetings. So you're going to have a wide range of opinions of people expressing their views at these meetings. We must ensure that our lawmakers spend more time with our constituents in order to learn their needs and to create legislative solutions to fulfill them. Lots of members of legislatures don't even have town hall meetings. They might have fundraisers where they, do their spiel, but they're probably going to avoid any questions at those events that could be a little uncomfortable for them. Rule 12, no member of a legislature is allowed to accept anything having present or future cash value that is offered or accepted with or without any intent to influence a lawmaker's proposal for a bill or voting decision. That covers about everything. You can't take any money from anyone except your family. All lawmakers' income tax returns will be automatically audited by the IRS. There's always going to be some evidence if there's some wrongdoing going on. So family members can give gifts as long as they're recorded, so we know how much they are and how much they gave. Unless it's an inheritance, well, that should be recorded too. Lawmaker salaries will be equal to the median income of individuals living in the district that they represent. How many members of Congress have constituents that earn an average of $174,000 a year? If you know any, let me know, because I'll move to that state. This rule should virtually prevent a lawmaker from accepting money, gifts, or free trips unrelated to their jobs from anyone but their family members. It will encourage those with average incomes to be elected officials. Citizen lawmakers, elected by voters, who know exactly who they are. Now, this last section of 3 of TAVRA highlights and concern the collection and use of taxpayer money, which would probably scare most politicians half to death if they heard it. Rule 13, all contracts authorized to construct, manufacture, or provide a service for government must be ensured by the contractor to be on time, within specifications, and within budget by a government-approved insurance agency. Today, hundreds of billions of dollars are wasted every year by giving corporations more money when they cannot complete their government contracts, especially in these military contracts for jet planes that fall out of the sky, or missiles that, like the Patriot, which fails every 20 attempts. Federally or state-approved insurance agencies will be paid by the contractor himself or herself to ensure their work is done properly and on time. Our lawmakers have few regrets giving money to those who are incompetent or possibly intentionally committing fraud against the people. Rule 14, no legislature shall authorize the purchase of products that are made in America by American citizens or purchase services not performed by American citizens. Services performed by American citizens can only use American-made products to perform the service. Any corporation or other organization receiving a subsidy, grant, or other form of treasury allocation or a tax exemption will comply with this rule. This single rule of TAVRA could create millions of jobs, permanent jobs, for Americans very quickly. For example, churches can still get their tax exemptions, but will need to buy all of their supplies and products made in America. And every contractor will need to have only American citizens working on a project using American-made products and American-made supplies. Pretty self-explanatory, I think. Rule 15, no foreign aid will be in any form of treasury instruments given directly or indirectly to anyone or any entity in a foreign government. Foreign aid must consist only of American citizens performing a service for a foreign government or supplying products, goods, equipment, or supplies that are made in America. Members of Congress have been giving hundreds of billions to foreign governments with little or absolutely no accountability as to how it is used. And the worst part of the government waste and abuse is that much of this is borrowed money that taxpayers pay billions of dollars of interest on. In one case, if some of you remember, $9 billion in cash was actually left unattended during the early part of the invasion of Iraq. We must stop letting our elected officials hand out cash or borrowing money as though it's coming from their own private bank that never asked for it to be returned. For example, our current involvement in Afghanistan is costing American taxpayers over $100 million every day in borrowed money. Rule 16.
Yes, Chair.
All military materiel
Would you like it?
Well done.
shall be purchased from nonprofit American corporations or corporations with administrative costs
Sure.
not to exceed 5% of their operating budget.
I'll have
Boards of directors, executives, and employees of these corporations shall not be employed, contracted, or associated in any way with any private entity in any similar or associated industry. Military materiel needed in emergency situations from for-profit corporations will be provided at cost on demand from the government as needed. I can hear the politicians running away right now with a stampede. Shameless and unchecked war profiteering has been a staple of American government waste and abuse for every war we have started or engaged in since we started our country. If armament, supplies, or anything else is needed to support American troops, American corporations will be expected to perform their duty as patriotic enterprises and forego profits until there is a resolution to a conflict by diplomatic means. Rule 17. All documents involving expenditures of the Treasury will be posted on the internet before they can be approved by the legislature. These are the documents that our lawmakers see, I guess, if they want to look at them. There's no obligation for them to look at something and make a decision to pass a law to give our money away. Documents previously used to allocate treasury funds shall be posted on the internet in a line item auditing form. Taxpayers must be aware of the costs associated with government operations and expenditures for goods or services for the people. This includes the money spent on executive and administrative staff in government bodies, as well as anyone who is getting paid to perform a government contract, which means we should know the salary of the executive of the company that's building a jet plane or a tank or whatever. Rule,
You want some more soup, honey?
I'm at the end now. Rule 18.
Would you like
Whenever
chicken
the
noodle or
oh, this is a
minestrone?
good one. In my opinion, whenever the military is engaged in
You're okay?
combat operations on foreign soil, a graduated war tax will be levied. An exception will be made for persons engaged in frontline combat zones and their spouses. They're paying enough, aren't they? The war tax will be 10% on income over $100,000. Poor people won't be paying for the wars in the future, according to TAVRA. The war tax will increase by increments of 10% for each additional $100,000 of income, up to 100% for individuals. For-profit corporations will pay this war tax on their raw profits at the time. This simple rule may put a damper on our invasions of foreign countries and give all American patriots an option. They can join our armed services to fight for their country in combat, or pay to support those who volunteer to fight for their country. In each case, all can fulfill their patriotic duty to country by putting their lives on the line or their cash on the line that they earn from the great benefits of living in a free and democratic society. In closing, if you don't get a chance to ask a question or comment about my 2 articles before the end of the meeting, I hope you all do, see me afterward or just contact me on my website. As I said before, give me some critical questions and comments. Yes?
Okay, the first thing okay, yeah, let's thank our speaker. Well, I'm gonna be directing the questions,
Right.
but I got one for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who in the hell is gonna run for office with all these rules and regulations on it? And second, who in the heck would wanna even consider dealing with the American government with a lot of the rules and regulations now? Answer me, why would I even have an incentive to run into politics anymore?
Politics will be a dead issue. The part of my plan is to destroy political party influence in our government, especially in our legislatures. They're the ones that are controlling the purse strings for our entire country. Political parties would play a role in maybe I should get up here. Political parties would play a role in maybe advising people or civic organizations who to vote for or what to vote about.
I guarantee you'd be begging people to run for office if
Yes.
these rules are in place.
Right. And you would be one of them if you wanted to, right?
I don't know, because I got a lot of problems with, I would have a lot of problems with what I've been posting on the internet from these college of complexes things. If I was to run for Congress,
You wanted to say something, Ron?
Yeah, first off, a little bit about your own background. Are you a former office holder? Are you a former candidate, political organizer, perhaps?
No.
Any experience in practical politics?
Right in front of you.
I have absolutely no experience in that
So
area.
then what qualifies you to come up with a set of regulations written by a person who's had absolutely no experience in real life politics?
Common sense. Does anyone agree with what I say? I mean, is this so off the wall? It's just common sense?
I agree with what you say.
Yeah. Any more questions?
And I
Yes.
disagree with what Tim said, and I disagree with what Pat Butler just said.
Okay,
You always
I got a
disagree with
fan
what I
here.
say.
I have agreed with you on at least one occasion.
That's my stuff.
He asked for people to speak up, and I'm speaking up.
okay.
One at a time.
It's not his prerogative to do that. Yes, young man with a.
Yes.
David had a question.
I like the majority of your proposals here, but the one about communication with politicians being immediately posted online.
Right.
Could we have that recorded and then make people have to FOIA it in order to get it? Because it would make a lot more sense than just posting it online and having every communication available for it.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite understand the first part.
I mean, you can, now there's a lot of stuff that is recorded, but you have to FOIA it in order to get it. So why couldn't we have those recordings be essentially that way?
We have to do what to get it?
FOIA, F-O-I-A,
Freedom of Information Act.
Oh, right, okay. Huh, good luck in getting it that way.
You can get a lot of stuff that way.
Well, open the books and open secrets too. Open the books especially.
I worked with him at
Yeah.
GSQ.
And how did he get it? He sued people.
Yes, he did.
Sued people who were unlawfully not letting that information out.
Yeah.
So why not have it available immediately?
Hold it for a while. Let's see.
I'll let you choose.
David, Travis.
You said something about putting restrictions on foreign trade that.
Right. Not foreign
for instance,
trade.
What,
Not foreign trade, foreign aid.
you said something about that churches would be allowed to keep their tax exempt status,
Yeah. Most people
but they
would like
couldn't
that.
buy goods that are made overseas.
Right.
Okay,
They have
and
to be
so-
made in America.
So you definitely are putting an emphasis on made in America
Correct.
things.
Right.
And that flies in the face of our freedom, that we have a right to buy merchandise that is made overseas, and you want to curtail that.
You have the right to do that. I'm just saying the government has decided that it doesn't want to do it. The government is making that decision. Yes.
Paul
Or
Rosado.
I'll let him.
I have two quick
Go ahead.
questions. First, other than yourself, how many people are in your organization?
About a half a dozen.
Second, if we have to buy all these things made in America, what are you going to do to encourage production to get back in America? Namely,
Well,
electronics.
that would happen automatically because the government, I don't know how much purchasing power they have, but certainly that would stimulate the economy in that direction.
Yeah, but factories don't just pop up overnight.
Right. But
Next
there
question.
will be a demand for it.
Pat Butler.
Yes, sir. You obviously have a certain amount of political skills in that you managed to evade the answer to the question. What is your background?
What does my background have to do with anything?
Plenty.
If I said I had political experience, to me it would mean, oh, I've experienced lying and making promises and bullshitting everyone. That's my, who would want someone with that kind of experience? Common sense. That's all I'm asking
No,
for.
he has right to ask what's your background. Can you can you tell what's your background?
Oh,
What have you
I'm a
studied?
retired social worker. I work with mentally ill people for about 35 years, so.
You're in the right
maybe
place.
I'm in the right place, right? These are just ideas that, you know, that I'm thinking of, what if I made laws, and these are the laws I made up.
All right, Mike?
Yeah, right, actually, starting in the beginning, the first one about the ballot access, you said
That's
each
right.
candidate would have to personally collect 100 signatures. Would there be some kind of, you know, right now there's enormous high number of signatures.
Right, yeah.
Would there be lower thresholds for people to get on the ballot? I mean,
Well-
I'm in favor of more and more people being able to
Yeah.
get on the ballot in a legitimate way.
Well, if we look at the national picture, I mean, if you're running for, I didn't really go into the executive branch, but obviously if you're running for a position in Congress, you're talking about, you know, the whole state getting involved like a senator,
Yeah.
but you're collecting, you're deciding as a person that you want to run, you want to be in the senator's office. So you start collecting personally, not someone else is going out for it. You're talking to people, not have someone, you know, sit at a booth and say, can you sign up for this guy? He's a pretty good guy, sign up over here. Doesn't make sense to me. You're going to meet the person. If I want to be in that office, I'm going to have to go out and meet people. And while I'm meeting people over this period of time, and I think, you know, in the law itself, all the stuff I'm saying is open to some
Yeah, but what
variation.
I'm getting at
No, you're collecting you're collecting people as you go and speak. Now, people are going to find out what you stand up for, and civic organizations or political parties might get involved to bring more people to you, to have a meeting so you can speak to them and collect more signatures.
What I'm getting at, I don't know how many signatures you need for these offices. Sometimes you hear 5,000 or 10,000, would you still have to have enormous amounts of signatures like that?
No,
Or would people be able to get on a ballot like with 500 signatures?
it depends on how many people are running. There's 10 people running for a seat in Congress, the numbers are going to be pretty high, but it's going to be, you know, the top 10 people that are going to be involved.
I see.
Yeah,
I see.
it's a matter of accumulating by presenting yourself to the people who say, this is a guy I'd like to represent me in Congress, or whatever.
Okay, Andy,
Yes.
After listening to your presentation, I'm getting the impression that these things are a lot based in common sense.
Right.
Did you get any of the ideas at all, or look at what's happening in the Scandinavian countries that are doing a lot of the things that you suggested here?
No, I haven't, but I understand that a lot of the other countries aren't as backward as we are.
No, my
in
point is a
politics.
lot of them are making tremendous progress
Yeah.
because they've got half of your agenda or better.
Yeah.
In a lot of these other countries that treat their people like humans rather
Right,
than
yeah.
you know, just objects to be exploited.
Right.
Ernie Norman.
Yeah, a couple things. Maybe I was chewing on something when you said it, but do you have, I didn't hear you say anything about limiting campaign spending, particularly in certain areas like radio and TV, just specifically limiting it or banning it. And I didn't hear you say anything about term limits.
Well, as far as limiting or banning TV ads, because you have to reveal who the ad was paid for by, would probably eliminate a lot of the current crap that we see around election time. But what I'm proposing when I say FCC, these are regulated by our government. These are our airwaves. So public broadcasting, we got like 4 in channel. We got 4 on channel 11, another 4 in channel 20. All these stations are available to give information to voters. In fact, if we decided that we want ABC and CBS and NBC to have these town hall meetings, we could say, this is the regulation. You're going to have a town hall meeting between these candidates. It's a national forum. That's it.
Yeah, no, that I agree with. Just wondering about,
And-
and what about term limits?
The term limits to me are probably useless because the way our system works now, we have two political parties that determine who is going to be on the ballot. 99.9% of all our legislatures are controlled by Democrats and Republicans, or all Democrats, or mostly Republicans. So that's a lock. I just lost my train of thought.
Yeah, term limits, whether.
Term limits, so what does a term limit mean? You're trying to get rid of someone who isn't doing a good job? I don't see the point of that. If a person's doing a good job, you want to keep them doing a good job. But the overall effect of the law is that the person is doing a good job just because he or she is following what the voters want. Their responsibility for making decisions is really low on the totem pole. They're out there to research issues and present them so their voters can understand them and give their opinion about which way they want to vote.
Yes, Helene.
Well, why?
I just wanted to say that I think that you sell yourself short because though you worked as a social worker for a long time, you really started on the line at Zenith, working, making things, so we
Yeah.
certainly know
Well,
from
you know,
that perspective.
40-year work, or 45, 50-year work history, so
Here
yeah.
you go, you two.
Yeah, I
Thank
mean,
you
I think
very,
that's-
very much.
But what I'm trying to get
Different
across is these are just common sense ideas that I have.
I thank you very much.
And I'm thinking that, you know, voters should be controlling our government, we don't need brokers in a separate government entity telling us what to do. We should be telling them what to do. And I didn't emphasize it enough, maybe it's in my other paper, but a lot of political language we have revolves around promises and not laws. And laws can be very complicated, and I'm sure even if everything took place as I envisioned it, I'm not going to be looking on the website of the senator to see, well, what does he think about this law? Or, yeah, that's pretty complicated. I want to keep the law short, and there's other provisions in here to make the law, for example, I recommend like a 500-word summary of the law. And that summary, whenever the law is challenged, because that holds the intention of the law, will be decided by a jury of people who are currently involved as citizens. So, just like the Supreme Court, do we really need it? When people, this brings up the question, a little off topic, but there's a lot of organizations that think we need an amendment to get money out of politics. But who exactly would be writing this law? Wouldn't it be J.P. Morgan Chase, Goldman Sachs, and ALEC? They're going to tell these Congress people what to write. And even if you look at the Supreme Court, with this, you know, they're elected by the President and the Senate agreeing with each other. It's still a matter of politics. That probably should be a bigger area, more important area of concentration, because they're making the final decision. Doesn't make any difference what the law says, it's their interpretation of the law. They say you should be able to carry a gun in church or fire one off whenever you feel like it. That's the law of the land. It's not the law in the Constitution, which is kind of vague. It's always been vague, but it's the interpretation of it. And if you have, like we have, political appointees running the Supreme Court, we're going to get that particular ideology represented by their opinions.
I have a question.
Yeah.
And that is that since a majority or near majority of most legislatures are composed of lawyers.
Right. Yeah, most of them.
anything that's, any laws that you propose here seem to be creating jobs for other lawyers to interpret. And I really don't see how you're going to evade the cash nexus, the incentives and disincentives of the financial system by this kind of legislation. More incentive to hire another lawyer to find a loophole.
No, but what we're trying to do is establish a fair and honest election system where voters are not subjected to political propaganda, but the opinions and the law-writing abilities of the people who want to represent them. And they know that when they want to represent their constituents, that they better do good research to inform them what their opinion is. And the other thing with the voting to pass or fail a law, if you don't reach the minimum 25% of voters in the district eligible for voting, you're still going to post those opinions on the legislature's internet site. So even if 10% people show up and 90% of them don't want a law passed, that legislator votes for the law, he's going to have a problem later.
The redhead and black.
Alright. I have a comment on Rule 10, that when the civil servant is made, excuse me. Anyhow, the civil servant is only allowed to speak for a legislator when the legislator is disabled.
Right.
I have a feeling that the technological improvements now, that is unnecessary. My own son has cerebral palsy, for instance, and speaks with an augmented communication app. And I feel that, I'm wondering what kind of disability would call for someone else's voice rather than your own.
Well, to communicate.
Well,
If the legislature had, if the lawmaker has cerebral palsy, if there's a method for him to communicate, then he communicates.
Right.
Not the office staff.
Right, I just don't see any situation in which a civil servant would be necessary to speak on behalf of a disabled
Well,
legislator.
all I'm saying is that I'm talking
At this
about,
period of history.
press secretaries. Why would I want to hear from a press secretary instead of the president? The president should be speaking to us, not a press secretary. I don't know where the press secretary apparently speaks for the president. I'd like him to say it.
Well, and what I'm saying is that disabled people now do have the option to have their own voice. And
Right.
technologically it's here.
Right.
So, I take a look at that one.
And voters, I don't quite understand if you're disagreeing with me or what.
Oh, I agree with the great majority of this proposal. I think it's
Okay.
very good. And-
I mean,
and
that
just-
particular.
That struck me as a bit odd, coming as I do from a knowledge about speech communication and augmentative therapy at this point and how well it's advanced at this point.
The only point I'm trying to make is I don't want a lawmaker or anyone else hiding behind someone else.
Right.
If there's something to be said, that lawmaker, whether he's communicating with sign language or whatever, will speak for himself, not have someone else speak for him or her.
Right.
You mean like if he was in the hospital or something like that?
Like just,
Yeah.
like Gabby
Well, if he
Gifford.
couldn't speak, then
Yeah.
someone else could speak for him. But
In a situation of just after the accident.
Yeah.
An idea. I see. So I just alter the language a little bit. So.
yeah, there's a lot of
As to,
altering to do of my language, that's for sure.
Just the word disabled strikes me as just a little,
Yeah,
that's all.
I guess I come from that field, so.
I did too, I just wanted to.
Gene, did you have your hand up?
No, I don't want to be John with this.
Okay.
I might ask an intelligent question.
There you go. There you go, sweetheart. And I'll be back with your ice.
Let's hear more critical comments.
Do you need change?
Go ahead.
Yes, sir. You mentioned, if I understood you right, that the town hall meetings would be conducted not as they are now by
Right.
groups like the Independent Women Voters
Right.
or Americans for Democratic Action.
They're political organizations.
Or newspapers, and I've conducted a few such things like that myself as a newspaper editor. But you want it done by political scientists.
Right.
Why would you want the people who have the least experience with the real world of politics and the greatest ability to, and you know, the least ability to tell when an office holder is BSing everyone? Because there's no one that can see through BS faster than a reporter who's been doing it for 30 years.
Well, let me ask you this. How many speak up? They're BSing us every day. You know, watch any a Sunday morning program, it's just full of bullshit.
Well,
what I'm saying is I want the moderator to be an impartial person, not a political person. If we're asking our reporters, which reporters are we asking? Are we asking the mass media reporters who don't say a word when someone is telling a bald-faced lie every day on the TV?
well, Meet the Press and programs like that, I've seen public office holders called to account when the moderator thought that they were perhaps overstepping the bounds of reality.
But have they, from what you've heard tonight from me, have they been held to account like I would? Would they be asking that person, where do you get your money from? Are you getting money from a certain industry to have this opinion?
I have heard that question asked.
Yeah.
I have heard it asked.
They would have no fun with me, believe me.
Right. Jim Bolger?
I'm looking at your rules,
Okay.
and I just can't see how they could work. I mean, you say it's common sense.
Right.
You say it's this, but
Common sense to me, anyway.
I can tell you that just from the amount of political savvy needed to run this college of complexes with me and Charlie with like booking speakers, having to keep you guys on time,
Right.
everything else.
What does that have to do with politics?
It has everything to do
You
with.
have organizational skills.
It has everything to do with politics, my friend. If you cannot speak, you cannot be a politician. If you cannot manage your time, you cannot be a politician. And if you cannot be an executive or run an office, you can't be a good politician.
Work for George Bush.
Again, I don't want.
He had an MBA.
And Reagan.
I want people with common sense, not politicians.
Well, who do you?
I would like you to represent me. I mean, I know you a little bit.
I don't think
And
you
I
would.
think you're an organized guy, but I have control over your behavior. If you want to make some crazy law, then I can vote against that law. Right now, I can't do that with anyone else. I'm looking for the real transparency we should have in government. That we have honest people with integrity representing us, or at least doing research for us, and we can represent ourselves. It's going to be up in my system, the voter is the one that's going to have the most power, not the government. Anymore?
Yes, Andy.
How do you expect citizens to be informed on what's happening if the press runs coordinated blackouts? How would you deal with that? The billionaires own control the press right now.
If we have,
how do you envision people getting involved?
if we have honest people in government who control the FCC, that wouldn't happen. Heads would roll.
So you would have this.
It all starts from a base of honesty and integrity, which we don't have now.
They would enforce the laws.
They would enforce the law.
Okay.
Like our NAFTA and TTP and whatever they are, these trade laws that, send all their jobs to communist China and these other nations because it's more profitable to do that. It's based on personal integrity, which is pretty lacking among our politicians.
I have, yes.
Do you have any politicians that are currently interested in your ideas?
No. I haven't gone out that much. This is the first time I've ever made a presentation of the ideas. And it's really not kind of my style to kind of read stuff. I like to do a more interactive kind of group with people and bring up a couple of ideas to introduce the concepts I have of how political language is manipulating their perception of what's actually going on. And it's basically, you know, smoking mirrors and promises that don't mean anything. I want people to focus on laws, that laws affect our behavior. Platforms don't have any effect, or plans have no effect at all.
Yes, let's see, Dan, you had a question.
Okay, are there any politicians in the past who you admire?
I'm not much of a historian.
No.
Really?
I'm
Are there
thinking-
any politicians now who you like?
Bernie Sanders.
Bernie Sanders would be one.
You're here.
But, and I think one thing I didn't really want to get into, but part of the website, and if you visit the website, just expect it to be changing from time to time, because I'm always thinking about something new, or you know, some improvement or improvement I think might be improvement. But one of the ideas I had was to identify who you would want to represent you. Is just to ask them two simple questions. And my latest iteration of this would be an honor pledge, that you promise that you, on your honor, that you will stop taking money from anyone if your other members of your legislature will do the same. So that's a start, so you don't have to be a complete coward or have a lot of courage, because you're saying, yes, I would agree with that. Now let's see who else doesn't, and to identify those people who don't want to do that. And then to say, I don't know if I'm so confused with, you know, because I've been doing this stuff for the past 3 or 4 weeks.
Months.
Well, just for this presentation. But the other thing would be, would you consider having a poll on your website for any law, which is quite possible, we have the technology to do this, to tell me what your opinion is so I know how to vote.
That's your
Now, politicians, they do have polls on their websites, but do you support this issue? Well, what the hell does support an issue mean? Unless there's a law involved that defines what the issue is and how it can be solved. So we're asking I would ask people, and that's a pretty simple request, not to take money if everyone else agrees. Make it like a, you know, velvet approach, it's not too harsh. And to poll my constituents to find out exactly what they want concerning a law, not an opinion or issue or a plan or a platform.
I noticed that on the blurb that announced your speech,
right.
You were going to identify, tell us how to identify honest politicians.
Yeah, that's in the handout I gave. I wanted to concentrate on the law today. But if you read that, you would get a pretty good idea of what I'm talking about.
Also organizations.
Right.
That were worth supporting. If you're going to get into that later, I'd be glad to hear it. But if not, how do you make the families of politicians suddenly honest? I mean, if they can give to the candidate, it seems like...
No, not in this case. No? I'm talking about persons donating $100 $100. I mean, that's just an
Well,
arbitrary
the
figure.
corporation is a person.
Well, they can donate their $100. They have all the freedoms that we have as a person, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, yes,
I have one more question.
Paul.
Only one?
One this time, yes.
Okay.
You've proposed a lot of checks and balances and a lot of things on the internet, a lot of things for people to do.
Right.
How is all this financed? I know you mentioned 10% of political donations, but if you're limiting donations to $100, that's $10 per donation. That does not seem like enough to me.
Well, it could be any figure you want. Assuming we have this system in place already, maybe we decide to bring it up to $1,000. But there's so much government waste and abuse. There's millions and billions of dollars that we can pour into use our technology. Again, the internet. Who knows what it's going to be 10 years from now? There's just the way we communicate electronically is just expanding every day. I mean, how many people? I don't even have a smartphone myself. 5 years ago, how many people had a smartphone? Now you're on the internet. You're doing all kinds of things with apps, and there's so much things you can do with just small electronics today. And this should be part of how we, as voters, communicate with our government. Not to have them make decisions in secret meetings, meeting with lobbyists to make those decisions, but under our watchful eyes.
Let's see, Robert, you had a question?
No.
All right. Then it's
Anyone else, please?
Let's go to rebuttals.
Tim. All right, we're ready for rebuttal
Okay.
already? Okay. Our first rebutter is.
We'll go
David
5
Travis.
minutes, Brom.
What? Oh, how many of you have remarks to make? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
Yeah, good.
7, 8, 9. At least. All right.
Okay, we'll go 5 minutes apiece, Brom.
We have 5 minutes.
And I got a
Okay.
stopwatch here.
And Tim will give you.
I'll give you a,
signal when you're about a minute away from the 5-minute boundary. All right. First rebutter is David Travis.
Good evening, I'm David Travis. Our speaker talked about putting the kibosh on buying from foreign countries so that it would be good for jobs in America, and this would employ millions of people. I'd like to call to all of your attention that there was an organization not too long after World War II where these guys put together this political party, and they said this is going to be a party that is dedicated to Germany for Germans, and we're going to keep out the foreign influence, including they put a big emphasis on Jews. Well, you all know what that led to. So when we say we're going to put the kibosh on foreign trade, there's an old saying that says, when goods can't cross borders, troops will. So we should not fall for things handed to us with a kind of a sugary label. But we should look at these things very, very carefully. If a church, and many churches, by the way, use a lot of things that are imported from Europe, etc. Things like novena candles and things like that, that according to our speaker, I guess, would just be off limits. Free trade is the first and foremost thing that should be held sacred.
Thank you. As a person who knows and works with the internet every day of my life, I can tell that our speaker has little knowledge of the real workings of the internet. While it is a great place to put up all these things that he's proposing, I have some very large questions about security and privacy and other things like that, because anybody's website will eventually get hacked. It's a fact, because RSA, which is the company that makes all the security rules, they make all the foundations of all the security software, they got hacked. And if they got hacked, anyone can get hacked. And if you get up there and say, well, you can't hack me, that just cheeses off the hackers and come after you.
Oh, well, thank you very
Take
much.
care of
I
you.
appreciate it. I appreciate it.
So as a service to our speaker, I'm going to give him one of my cards and tell him that if he needs help with the internet or computers or whatever, to just let me know.
I got one already.
Oh, you did? Oh, okay.
I'm Michael Foley. I want to thank the speaker for his presentation and his program he presented. There are many, many, many good rules in this here packet that I think at least address a lot of the things that are wrong with our government and our political system. What we need really is honorable people holding elective office, and what we need is citizen involvement on a weekly basis from vast numbers of the people in this country. Most of all, I want to thank Pat Butler for running his despicable mouth. He sits there and he asks this man, who's this man to stand up here and make rules for politicians when he ain't been involved in politics? Pat Butler, you show what's one of the main reasons what's wrong, why this country is so screwed up. You think it's only you and the buddies that you got you're running with? You're a low-level echelon lackey of the political system in this country.
No personal attack.
It's not a personal attack. This is a statement of fact.
I got
One fool at a
I got
time.
two Lissinger Awards,
One-
that's one step below a friggin' Pulitzer.
One fool
and
at a
I got
time.
3 books to my credit. What have you got?
So you got awards from your low-level lackey buddies.
No.
Now, as I was saying, who is this man to be standing up here making rules for politicians? It is the duty and the responsibility of every adult in the United States of America to make rules for politicians. And it says in the Declaration of Independence that if government is not serving people, it is up to the people to make rules to change the government. That's who he is. He's a citizen. You don't even have to be a citizen. A human being living in the United States of America. It is a duty and a responsibility of people living in the United States of America to make rules for politicians. Not you and the buddies you're suck-holing up to.
Okay.
I'm afraid that
And it wasn't a personal attack. It was a statement of
violated
fact.
our other rule that perhaps I should have announced, but I thought by this time everybody knew it, and that is that we do not personally insult anybody here.
It wasn't an insult. It was a statement of fact.
Or their heritage. All right. By George, I have the next question. Rebuttal.
Oh, okay.
And that is, you know, I looked at your 18 points, and aside from the fact that I think that it would take a lot of legal enforcement that would be very difficult, I think that any system of trying to take money out of politics just doesn't cut it as far as our economy and social system go.
I'll be back in a minute.
The ways of getting around laws are myriad, and passing other laws to enforce it, and then trying to get people to follow what everybody else is doing. You have to have a policeman on every corner, an accountant in every campaign office. You have to have, it becomes impossible. You have, but there is an effort in your rules to make for a little more publicity. But even that is weak, because most of the media that people subscribe to is already bought and sold. And we'll hear about that next week. From Andy. All right. Thank you. Well, there's a narrower part. Hold it up.
Slide it on the top.
But it's sharp.
There's pressure on the top.
Okay, thank the speaker. I think, you know, to face this group, you really have to have a lot of guts. I've been a member of this, a student here for at least 10 years, and I never had the guts to face this group other than at a rebuttal. So thank you very much for being a brave guy anyway. Now, my understanding is, I admit that I'm a little vague on some details, but my understanding is if you want to get these things passed in the law, you have to get a legislator, either a state senator, state representative, U.S. rep, or U.S. senator to introduce the law that you want passed. And I can just see myself walking up to Representative Chakowski and saying to her, Representative Chakowski, would you consider entering this, these 18 laws into, make these 18 laws into bills and introducing them to the U.S. House of Representatives? I think I just couldn't face her with that, to be honest with you. So that's something that, you know, I have had the experience of talking to aldermen, talking to U.S. reps, talking to state senator, state representative. I see these people face to face and talk to them. So I would suggest to the speaker that if you truly want to get any of these passed, that you start talking to your representatives. Obviously, you don't think a lot of these people, but I think maybe if you talk to them face to face, you might find out that a few of them are a little better than you think they are. I've spoken to mine, and I think some of them are fairly decent people. Thank you.
Thank you, Speaker. And don't forget, the messenger is always the bad guy and the wrong guy, and they jumps down the messenger's throat. And the reason for this, the messenger usually have a truth. And people, as Jack Nicholson said in the movie, they can't stand the truth. Listen, don't let nobody discourage you. I don't have to say that because you operate like I operate, from common sense, and you read a book here and there sometime. Because if they read something, they would read the federal papers. These were three dudes,
That's the speaker.
John Jay and Patterson and Hampton, talking about what was wrong. And these were the things that you do to make it right. Jefferson, the Bill Band, Adams, Samuel Addison. If you read something they wrote, what are they saying? They're saying that what's happening here, what I see is not right. If you read Karl Marx, he's talking about something that he seen that it wasn't right. Listen, people, ain't no man got the goddamn final answer. If he did, he stays his ass out the cemetery. But people got to be awful ignorant and dumb to not to accept intelligent dialogue or writing material. Marx, I read him. The Bible, I read him. Jesus Christ was a Jew. He looked around the Jewish community and said, I don't like this. And he went out preaching what should be done and what should be done. What's wrong with an individual standing up, pointing out the status motherfucking quo? I don't understand it. Make my stomach boil. What you so afraid of when somebody get up and say, this ain't right, that ain't right. And if you're over 10 years old, you know goddamn well that congressmen and senators is being bought and don't care nothing about the people they represent. And the two things that is important. And I'm not going to be strong with this and call no name and point no finger. However, I can say this. The question is more important than the answer. And if you think I'm lying, go to Plato and listen to Socrates, and you say, well, you're right. And the next thing that they don't teach in school, but I learned on my own, because I always want to know something, and I'm not afraid of the fucking truth. And that is listening. Ain't no subject in school where they teach you how to listen. Listen, people. Everybody have a right to point to what is different or what is wrong or what is so forth. This man ain't said he's God. Well, Christ said he was, but this man ain't said this man ain't said he was God. But here's a man got up here and intelligently pointed out everything that anybody over 3 years old should know. You ain't got no country because the assholes that represent you ain't doing shit for you. They're doing something for the people that pays them. And somebody mentioned about all the laws and all the laws. This goddamn country got more laws than any country in the world. Do you know anything about the Congress records? Well, go to the library somewhere and get you some. In one fucking day, the Congress record is this thick. When they meet, it's this thick. Of what? Resolution and law. So don't tell me nothing about, well, what about all of this? You gonna do all of this stuff? Give me a fucking break.
It's on the, right there, on the side, Andy.
All right, Larry.
I have the unenviable task of following Gene, as he always says. He says it better than anybody else. Give my ass a break. Make a couple of quick observations here. The first step toward solving any problem we teach 7th graders, you have to first correctly identify the problem and then correctly identify the solutions, right? Well, David Ray Griffin said, you don't need an open mind to understand this stuff. You need a 30% open mind. And the ability to just step through the psychological barrier and look at the evidence. Griffin published 10 books on the forensic evidence of 9/11. But there's thousands of others that have said the same thing on many other subjects. The evidence is easy to understand if you're willing to come out of your bubble of mythology and stop watching television for a little while and, like Gene said, read a book. There's hundreds of books on different subjects that the media, you don't see a scrap of it in the media. A nation is mentioned here, how to bring jobs back to America. You know, was it Howard? What was the guy's name? Howard in Network. He says, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. Well, you have to get to that point, and you have to realize that your kids and grandkids right now have no future in America. Many of them are going to be dying before they're 60 years old. The kids that are 10, 12 now, they're not going to make it to our age unless all of the adults that are here now get moving. And we talk about the greatest generation that won World War II. Well, no, the greatest generation is the people that are alive right now that are awake and understand what's happening with the climate, with Fukushima, with the destruction of the oceans and everything else. If we get our act moving and push the country towards solar and wind power, which is now cheaper than every kind of fossil fuel, we have a chance. Well, I'll talk about some of that next week, some of it on September 13th. But that means beginning to manufacture stuff to move the country forward in this country. A country that has no manufacturing base has no middle class. The middle class has been under solid attack, all-out attack since 1980 when Reagan busted the first PATCO union. And it's been downhill for middle class people ever since. The billionaires are winning because we've been sitting back as sheep. We outnumber the billionaires 1,000 to 1, but we allow the press to keep us in the dark. Jim Hightower published a fantastic book in 2003. It's called Thieves in High Places. You can get it for a few bucks on the internet. I highly recommend ordering a copy and read this and digest it. Thieves in High Places. And he published 7 pages of about 200 bills that were published by the Bush administration, bills, pieces of legislation passed by that Congress from just 2001 to 2003, the first 2 years. And he said, look at this toxic sludge. Put on your gas mask, your rubber glove, hip waders, wade into this. See if you can find anything in there that isn't the essence of Antichrist, for one thing. And he said, then after you wade through that, ask yourself this question. Why do you think there are so many sexual scandals in the Republican Party? Thieves in high places. Why are there so many scandals, sexual scandals in the Republican Party? That's because to pass this kind of legislation that the Bush administration passed, to pass those kinds of bills, you need perverts. Ordinary people with a pulse and a conscience won't go anywhere near that sludge. Virtually every member of the Republican Congress and the Republican Senate, every last one of them, comes from one of 7, what one author said, it's the Magnificent Seven. 7 specific categories. Some people come from more than one, but the 7 categories are your basic loonies, crazies, wackos, perverts, thieves, whores, and criminals. That is every you can identify the Republicans because every one of them comes from at least one of those 7 groups. And if they're not, if you show a shred of decency, a pulse or a conscience, and you don't vote for anything that will help the American people, the Republicans will wipe your ass out at the next primary.
No.
And that's what's happening in this country. The billionaires own and operate the Republican Party. As long as you control one party and you have a majority, you can do anything. So our current senators and congressmen, they're all virtually millionaires and multimillionaires. We have the best Senate and Congress right now that money can buy. And there's studies out showing that investors they're not worried about investing in gold or silver. They're investing in federal judges and congressmen and senators. You get 10 times better rate of return on your money.
Okay.
So let me finish this one last thought. We got time. If next week I'm going to hold up 2 books. One of them is called 10 Billion. It talks about when the human race is going to be near 10 billion. The other one is this book. This is 2013. It's new. I heard this guy on the radio on Tom Hartman's show. The title of the book is called Crucifying America. It describes what's happening in America better than the last 100 books that I've read on this subject. If you don't have time to read it, 100 or 200 books, order a copy of this thing, this paperback copy called Crucifying America by C.J. Whirlman. It's well worth the read. Thank you.
But Andy, a whore isn't a criminal.
It depends on how you define it. It's an old Texas expression. Maybe Tom will tell us. There's a Texas expression that said, our legislature is totally whored out.
You should lump all of us perverts in with the Republicans.
Yeah.
And Tom Barry. Anyway, Winston Churchill once said that Americans will always figure out what to do after they try everything else. And that's kind of what we're here today talking about. Our speaker, I gotta commend him for trying anyway, and coming up with different ideas of what to do. Although I don't necessarily agree with him. In trying to condense some of this, he said that having people donate a certain amount of money, restricting the voting age of voting, was it the $100 I think you mentioned? Yeah, it would for voting citizens who would, I can't read my own writing, have a primary legal residence in the candidate's district. Such a law would restrict candidates being able to raise funds for an election, especially as others would not face the same restrictions. That's one of the problems. And whatever you have to get done, you have to get Congress to do it. The other thing he brought up was, would you agree with the law that your constituents have the right to determine how you vote on laws using electronic means as a vote to whether a law should be accepted or rejected? Well, I went to say no to that because why even have a representative? If those elected are selected to vote on how he or she is to vote, it would be a rave for me and I don't care about the next person. I lived through that. I know what it is. It doesn't work. The third one is, would you agree that the law would make any government contract, grant, or other use treasury funds required to employ only American citizens using products, equipment, or supplies manufactured or produced only in America? Well, this seems quite restrictive to me because how would you apply this to Army or Navy purchasing stores or supplies overseas from other countries? It wouldn't work. Anyway, those are just a few things that caught my attention. If you look at what was wrong with our country, I think our last speaker here said that we got the best Congress that money can buy. That's one of our problems. And we have a Congress, we have money controlling Congress. This is one of the problems we have in this country. We have to change it. Now, I was a negotiator, and if you have something on the table that will cut your throat, the only way you can beat it is come up with something that won't agree to your proposal that won't cut your throat. So maybe we get Congress act in its own self-interest to instruct the Federal Communications Commission to require the media to provide sufficient free airtime. They always are free for federal candidates in general elections to air their views. Maybe the last 90 days of a general election. Then the challenger would get the same money as the challenger get the same airtime as an incumbent. That would level the playing field. And the challenger may even beat an incumbent. If that were to happen, then the representatives would end up representing the people that they would represent the voters instead of representing the people buying their vote in Washington. That's what you want to have happen anyway. That was my view of what might change things. We would have sufficient time for general elections. Last 90 days, I mentioned that. The end result will be a Congress that represents people who, instead of those who are currently buying their vote in Washington. Legislation is going to be passed to level the playing field on corporate power, impose working conditions for the people Congress is supposed to represent, and have a general improvement in the United States economy without fear of the dollar being thrown off its pedestal. That's another problem we have. We've got corporations going overseas all the time, and we need to put tariffs on them, not on other countries, so that we create jobs here. If we have jobs here, then we can build a better, stronger economy. If we can't do that, we're in deep doo-doo. Let's face the facts. Sorry to keep it. Thank you.
If you want a giant sucking sound of citizens leaving this country, of corporations moving overseas, and our citizens going down the toilet because of over-restrictive governmental regulation, then adopt this gentleman's platform. I know he is trying his best. The idea is working, but they plain and simply won't. I'm going to restrict myself right now to the free trade arguments and the restrictive covenants he has on American-made products and goods. I can just imagine now some government agency just wanting to replace their computers. They all have to be American-made. They're a truly global product with a global supply chain. And the cheapest places and the best value can still be found at a Best Buy store or online. And the funny thing is, it's not just trade or not just money or goods that cross borders. With the click of a mouse, I can move an entire pension fund's worth of stocks from one country to another. I can move capital from one country to another. And because of this, trade in currency and stocks and bonds is well over 100 times more than the goods of trade and just of goods and services. And because of that, when you look at our last financial crisis, it was just because of a matter of the failure of implementing proper capital requirements for the banks, the preservation of fraud, and the non-enforcement of the security and exchange laws. If you want to bring our government back into a fair trade system with representation, do some simple things. Put the general ledger online. Put the government on the same generally accepted accounting principles that all corporations have to use. Simply keep the rules of free trade open and fair. And third, one of the more radical ideas for climate change I've talked about before, implement some safer form of Gen 4 nuclear power reactors. And if you really want to see the poor in the rest of the developed world get their fair share, give them access to the capitalist system by giving them property rights. Hernando de Soto, the author of The Mystery of Capital, agrees with me. That's all. We have the answers before us, and a lot of times it can be just as simple as re-looking at the Constitution of the United States. And the other thing you got to realize, when we call these politicians out and the fraud is exposed, I'm proud to be an American because this does not happen in other countries. We bring them out, we call them to account, we vote them out of office, we have recall elections. I think the system's doing exactly what it's supposed to do. Thank you.
I like people like our speaker who will take the time to put some ideas down on paper and then present them. Even though I may not agree with every point on every one. I think if these ideas could be implemented, they would probably help improving our dysfunctional government. The problem is the folks in Washington and Springfield and City Hall are not likely to shoot the horse they rode into town on. So that's a bit of a problem. It may be time to to sharpen the pitchforks. One of the main treatises I saw is getting the money out of politics, and that's a great idea, using free TV time, which to some extent they already do, but mandating it. I think the reason that we're having trouble with the money in politics issue and getting rid of money in politics is the same reason we're losing the war on drugs. We're trying to fight supply. You don't fight supply, you fight demand. If you lessen demand, then the problem goes away. And the way to do that is to severely limit the ways and the amounts people can spend money on campaigns. And there's some of that in our speaker's presentation here tonight. I'd go even further and get rid of an awful lot of things. The TV commercials and so on and so forth. I think the way that we pick our elected officials is absolutely abominable. It's a terrible system, totally money driven. An alderman in Chicago I know of spent $600,000 on one campaign to become alderman. People have spent $10,000 for school board seats in Evanston. And Bloomberg in New York spent $63 a vote to become mayor. This is really inappropriate. It's in essence buying of elections, while the corporate and money people by the politicians. Now, some of you remember our friend Tom Durkin, and he ran. Now, he did it right. He ran on the Green Party several years ago for state senate, didn't win, but he got, I think he got 2,000 to 4,000 votes. I don't remember exactly, but the money he spent probably less than $100 or $200, a little in-kind money for faxing, etc. And that works out to somewhere between 3 and 5 cents a vote. Okay, that's more like the way it should be. Now, one of the solutions, in my opinion, which almost nobody seems to agree with me on anymore, is term limits. I think that one of the problems is we have career legislators. I don't think that's healthy. I don't think that's what was intended by the founding fathers. And they didn't say anything, admittedly, about that. But if you have term limits, then at least in their last term, legislators and administrators like the president are not looking to the next election. They are looking to the problems of their constituents, and hence, they can follow their conscience or common sense rather than what is going to get them elected in the next. They don't have to think about the next election. There's not going to be a next election for them. So that, I think, is important. I will say, as bad as our system is, many of our legislators, at least the ones that I have, as bad as the way they get elected is, they do a pretty good job. They have a pretty good sense of their constituency, and they do a pretty good job of trying to get the things done that need to be done, which isn't always easy because there's always the opposition. And they last that way for a while. Then eventually they fall into a rut and become part of the system. And I think this is where term limits would help in getting fresh blood in there. Yes, we say, well, if somebody's doing a good job, we want to keep them. Experience is of value, but I think there is nothing that is more valuable than fresh thinking and people who are going after the office. I'll try and answer Tim's question. The reason people will seek public office is because they care about the country or the city or whatever constituency they're going to run for. And that alone, if we have people who are thinking more about that than their own power, their own ego, their own future, we would be certainly better off with that. Thank you.
First off, actually, I find myself agreeing with the speaker on a couple points. I believe you also were less than enthusiastic about the idea of term limits. I think you were saying, without saying it, that we have term limits. They're called elections. And that if people are doing their duty and watching these people, see, part of the problems we're talking about tonight, and part of the reasons this gentleman is sitting here, is because the general public has not done its duty, and it's more than the duty of going to the polls. Politicians are able to get away with outrageous behavior simply because of the fact they know no one is watching them and no one is going to care. On the other hand, I think you were a bit harsh on some of our, at least some of our politicians on the north side, members of Congress. For example, you would require that members of Congress meet once a month in town meetings. I can tell you, I know this to be a fact. Congressman Michael Quigley meets at least once, usually twice a month, in town meetings with his constituents, because I, as a reporter, often find myself covering, I don't know about Jan Schakowsky, but I suspect it's something very, very similar. In the case of Guterres, the less I hear about Guterres, the better I like it. You talk about, self-serving.
I also find myself in agreement with you on a few other things. On the other hand, why in heaven's name would you require that town hall meetings, I believe you said, should be held at a local high school? Why not the Elks Hall? Why not St. Alphonsus Auditorium? Why not any number of places which can hold that kind of crowd? Why does it have to be a high school? You know, also, as a newspaper reporter and editor, I chaired and indeed refereed candidates forums for the Lorna newspapers. And I can tell you that if you didn't have a panel of people, mostly reporters, some former office holders, that kind of thing, firing questions at the candidates, a lot of the right questions were not going to be asked. Because, you know, they say, those who can do it, those who teach, teach. You have a limited amount of value from a political scientist, I don't care if he is a PhD, compared to the value of having someone like, let's say, former Alderman Dick Simpson. He's an academic, but he was also an alderman who fought in the trenches of City Hall. He knows what it's about. He's written about 4 or 5 very interesting, very trenchant, very worthwhile books on the subject of politics in Chicago, as it really is. You need people that have the experience, which is one of the reasons why I take umbrage with the idea of term limits, because these are complicated jobs. This is not like in the days of Andrew Jackson, when any person in the room could be picked and sent to Congress. It's a very complicated job today. The issues are a lot more complicated. Oh, yeah. It sometimes takes, remember, you got a 2-year congressional term. It sometimes takes 4 to 6 years before you really know who is what, which are the lobbyists that you should listen to, and which are the lobbyists you should not even let in your front door. We hear lobbyists, and I think 90% of the people in this room, they get kind of sick to their stomach because they figure lobbyists are these greasy, oil-soaked people that have come with satchels full of money to buy congressmen. I can tell you this much, you know, true confessions. Shortly after I got out of college, I worked at the American Osteopathic Association. I was the media and public affairs representative, and I was a lobbyist. I went to North Dakota and arranged and engineered the passage of the medical practice law in North Dakota. So I'm maybe not as low level as you might think. Anyway, I provided them with information. I did not provide them with money. I did not provide them with BS. I provided them with the facts. Yes, I took them out to dinner. Yes, I wined and dined a few of these people. All people must eat, and all people must sit down and talk. This is how legislation gets done. There is nothing corrupt about if I'm a legislator, asking you if you happen to be an expert, indeed a representative of a various industry that I don't understand, and telling me what the facts as you see it really are. If you're an undertaker, and I don't know much about the undertaking business, you're going to tell me why you'd be the last person in the world to let me down, and you're going to tell me the real problems of that industry. I'm going to listen. I'm going to talk to someone else and someone else. That's how good legislation gets done. A lot of people regard it as collusion. In some cases, it's nothing more than good government, and I have just been told that I have got to get out of here or face the penalty. Thank you. Oh, and incidentally, as a representative of the pervert community, I have to take umbrage at being thrown in the same cesspool as the Republicans.
Perverts are to be found in all political parties, including Sinn Féin.
And now,
Yes.
Thank our speaker again.
I'm trying to sort through all this stuff. It's quite an interesting comments. Two of them came up by two different people about foreign trade and free trade. I didn't say anything about trade. Talking about our government employing people. Not consumers can buy whatever they want from other countries. It doesn't affect the government. Talking about government. Security on the internet. Apparently, I think there is ways to secure information. But what I'm saying, the proposals that I made are basically something that you can see for yourself, whether it's accurate or not. You vote, the machine puts it on the internet, you know what the machine is, you know exactly what happened. So I guess there are other ways to, I guess my main concern would be with voting. That would be the main thing. Someone mentioned impossible to enforce something. I forgot what it was. I didn't have time to write it down. But that's another problem. Our executive branch, which enforces our government rules and regulations and laws, is enacting. They're paid off by the same people that pay the lawmakers to make the laws. So that's why it's called prosecutorial discretion. And you can be discreet in enforcing the law or ignoring it. Federal and state representative, get this started. Yeah, the big picture to me is pretty important, but I think to make changes in government, we have to start at the local level. The city council here, not Durban or Kirk. Would be easier for people to get involved in politics, to do some of the changes I would like to see. Raising funds. This is always the thing that comes up. Why do we need so much money in politics? Why do we need so much money for elections? We have broadcasting stations that are part of our government regulations, and why aren't we just doing that all the time? Have 20 town halls. Restrictive government regulations. The only restrictions I have that I'm aware of is restrictions on behavior, conduct of officers, conduct of our executives, conduct of our lawmakers, transparency to see what the hell these guys are doing. Okay, that was the main points. Boy, it's hard to keep all of this in my head. Term limits, again. You have someone who's doing a job, why would you want to replace that person? And in terms of thinking that because someone only lasts so long, we're kind of ignoring the power of our two political parties to put whoever they want in office. This Democrat, the end of his term limit is now. Now we got a place to put one of our guys in, Republicans. Or the Democrats said, yeah, this guy got fired from this other job, or he didn't do such a good job, but he knows us and we pay him well. He's gonna, let's put him in that position as well. It's a what's the expression? The good boys network. Monitor systems, fresh thinking, high school public. High schools are public property. And we're having these representatives show up at different high schools which kind of match the population where their districts are. So why wouldn't you have them at high school? But that's only for the live crowd. I want that meeting to be streamed over the internet or watched on TV as well. So it's a matter of who's showing up for the 1,000 or 2,000 capacity auditorium. And I want people who are the voters in the community to be asking the questions. And political moderators, political science moderators, I'm just thinking about Robert's Rules of Order, and just to keep order within a debate. And we see this kind of ignored on these last presidential debates. No one's called out, and to have people in the audience involved in the debate, and no one's called out for the lies they give or they make, even by the other debater. Lobbyists are good or bad. Yes, lobbyists can be good, but I'd like to see them meeting with my representative, see what they have to say. Now it's just a secret meeting. So the lobbyist is an oil company, well, they're probably getting some favors. If the lobbyist is an undertaker, probably makes sense. He wants to talk with a representative about the regulations for his industry. I'd like to see both of those meetings. Someone turned off the air conditioner. I guess it's getting late.
Yeah. As long as they don't turn off the
Yeah, we had lobbyists too when I worked for Jewish Vocational Service. I forgot who they met with. Maybe in Washington, maybe the state legislature. That agency is closed now. As Medicaid made so many demands on us that it was impossible actually to do the tremendous. We were spending more time doing paperwork than actually working with our clients. It was getting ridiculous. It was just two, maybe an hour meeting with clients all day and 7 hours of paperwork. I think that's about it. The main point I wanted to make was that I just want voters to have more power within controlling how our government operates. And you can't do this unless you have a foundation of honorable people to represent us. And we can't pick honorable people unless we have a clear understanding of what they represent. And they have to present themselves as themselves, not by political propaganda ads, which try to influence people's opinions of them, which are often just bald-faced lies. And it's difficult to defend against that when you have more money than the person you're lying about doesn't. It's just a terrible system that we have. I think that's about it. Main thing, voting. Let's talk about laws, not promises. And let's have honest people in government instead of the people we have now. Thank you very much.